Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of the Cheat Meal presented by Deep Fried Draft. My name is Brian Bosarge. Week 3 in the books. Go back and listen to Bumpers FM for our Week 3 review, but we're on to Week 4. We're on to Cincinnati, as Bill Belichick said a few years ago. But anyway, we got some news to get to, and we're going to preview 10 games. 10 games this week for Deep Fried Draft to watch. But let's hit some news first. Some college football injuries to talk about, and one near and dear to my heart. South Carolina's probably their best offensive player, Deebo Samuel, a junior wide receiver, kick returner, tore or broke a bone in his lower leg, somewhere around the fibula area. Per Deebo himself, he should be out about 6 weeks. Per head coach Will Muschamp, out the rest of the year. So either way, it's bad for South Carolina, and this could impact his decision to declare early for the NFL draft. Texas junior offensive tackle Connor Williams, currently my number 3 rated offensive tackle prospect and an overall top 20 player, has had meniscus surgery from an injury he suffered early in the Southern Cal game, and he's done for the season in all likelihood. I'm not sure if this will affect whether he declares either way. So we'll see how that goes. One NFL trade to get to this week. The Saints have traded linebacker Stephon Anthony, former first-round pick, to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for a 2018 fifth-round pick. This is a bit off for the Saints. I will like to say that I had Stephon Anthony rated in the 90s, so I thought a first-round pick was way too much for him. But so a little vindication for me there. But New Orleans has had 13 defensive players drafted from the 2013 through 2015 drafts. And as of right now, of those 13 players, 4 are still with the team, 2 are starters. One of them is Kenny Vaccaro, who rumor is that they have on the trade block, which is something I pretty much saw coming after the draft when they, draft Von Bell in the second round last year and Marcus Williams in the second round this year. So, just a poor job of drafting, and whether you believe it's all Mickey Loomis, the general manager, as I do, because I just think he's horrible at his job, or some people think it could possibly, Sean Payton from the Bill Parcells family there, where they, if you're going to make the meal, that you should get to buy some of the groceries type of philosophy. Does Sean Payton have a lot to do with these personnel decisions? I really don't know, but I know they're bad. And it's as bad as their drafting has been, their free agency signings have been worse. I mean, Jarris Byrd, for example, this year, Adrian Peterson, you spend $7-8 million a year on Adrian Peterson, whose best years are long behind him. He doesn't really fit your scheme, and you essentially have a back already on the roster that's just as equally capable of what Adrian Peterson can do already. And Mark Ingram, you're paying big bucks to, and that's $8 million that, granted, they probably would have wasted somewhere else anyway, because they don't know what they are horrible in free agency. But I mean, that in theory is $8 million you probably could have been better spent on your horrible defense that can't stop anybody from throwing the football. But I digress. Let's get into week 4. And let's hit some previews here. And we're going to start on Friday night, September 22nd, with Virginia at Boise State on the Blue Turf, 7 p.m. ESPN2. First look at the Cavaliers this year, and they have a handful of prospects to watch. Probably their best prospect, in my opinion, is their safety, number 3, Quinn Blanding. He's a guy who patrols the deep secondary, and I want to get a good look at him this week because Boise's got some guys that can attack the deep middle, and especially their tight end, Jake Rowe, who had 2 touchdowns last week. They have a senior linebacker, number 53, Micah Kaiser, who was the Football Writers Association of America Defensive Player of the Week this week, so he's a guy that can get after it. Also, their quarterback, number 6, Kurt Benkert, was on the Senior Bowl watch list. I have watched him zero, so I'm anxious to get a good look at him this week. For Boise, I want to look at their junior defensive lineman, number 55, David Moa. So, also on Friday night at 9:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 1, we have Utah at Arizona. First look at the Utes this year, and with the Utes, one of my top 32 players available in the draft is their senior defensive lineman, number 93, Lowell Lotulelei, the younger brother of Carolina Panthers former first-round pick, Star Lotulelei. So he's a dominator inside. Want to get a good look at him on Friday night. And on their offense, number 88, senior tight end Harrison Hanley is a guy who was on the Senior Bowl watch list, a big tight end. Want to get a look at him, see how he operates. Does he block? Is he just a wing tight end? I want to see. For Arizona, their senior running back, number 28, Nick Wilson, didn't get a carry last week against UTEP. Is he healthy enough to play this week? Let's find out. Saturday morning, September 23rd, 11 a.m., game reverse mirrored on ABC or ESPN2, depending on the part of the country you're living. In my part of the country, it'll be ABC. NC State at Florida State. Florida State hasn't played since their opening game loss against Alabama. They had their game against Louisiana Monroe canceled, and their game against Miami last week was postponed until October 7th. So whatever, other than DeAndre Francois, whatever injuries they suffered against Alabama, they should, in theory, have had time to rest up. The bad problem with not playing any games is now you have your true freshman quarterback who has not thrown a pass yet and has taken no meaningful snaps at all, will now be staring down the barrel of NC State's pass rush. So good luck with that, Mr. Blackman. The matchup to watch in this game, in my eyes, will be in the trenches for NC State. Their guard, senior number 50, Tony Adams, who's listed at 6'2", 315. How does he handle top 20 player, number 91, senior defensive lineman for Florida State, Derek Nandi? At 11 a.m. on ESPNU, West Virginia at Kansas. Why this game? Should be a rout. West Virginia, we're going to look at their senior corner, number 20, Corey Winfield, who's 6'1", 190. Kansas, not a good football team, but they do have a couple of interesting prospects. Guy who caught my eye last year is senior tight end, number 84, Ben Johnson, 6'5", 245. He's a field stretcher down the middle, can go out wide. Want to see him block a little better if that's in the cards for him, but we'll see. Johnson has good hands and solid route runner, so we'll get a good look at him. And they have a junior edge rusher, number 2, Dorrance Armstrong Jr., a guy who haven't concentrated on yet, but is thought highly, very, very highly thought of in the scouting community. He's 6'4", 245 player. At 2:30 p.m. on CBS, Alabama is at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt surprisingly 3-0 to start the season, including a win over Kansas State last week. For Vandy, we're going to see their senior running back, number 7, Ralph Webb. How does he do against the Alabama defensive front led by senior number 9, Deshaun Hand, and junior defensive lineman number 94, Deron Payne? Also for Vandy, I want to get a look at their linebacker, number 20, senior Oren Burks. 2:30 p.m. on the SEC Network, Louisiana Tech at South Carolina. Louisiana Tech doesn't have a whole lot of prospects to watch for, but one they do have is a late-round running back prospect, number 3, senior Jared Kraft. For South Carolina, he's had a good start to his season. Let's see how it continues with number 4, senior edge rusher Bryson Allen Williams. He's 6 foot 230. He's undersized, so he's definitely probably a 34 outside backer at the next level. I don't think he's fast enough or athletic enough to be a safety, so he's going to have that tweener label. So I mean, he's probably an undrafted free agent guy at this point, but you know, he can make plays. 6 p.m. on ESPN, Mississippi State at Georgia. This was going to be my first look at Mississippi State this season, but as I said in the review, I dropped the Tennessee-Florida game last week and added Mississippi State against LSU. For Mississippi State, if you go to deepfrieddraft.com, you can read my recipe I wrote on Martavis Rankin, their senior offensive tackle, number 55. I did not speak highly of Mr. Rankin. I don't think he handles speed very well. There is reports out that he has improved this season. I didn't concentrate on him against LSU, but I will concentrate on him this week as I want to see how he handles Georgia's senior edge rusher, number 7, Lorenzo Carter, who's 6'5", 242, and he's an improved edge rusher. I want to see how that matchup goes. 9 p.m. on Fox Sports 1, Washington at Colorado. Washington senior wide receiver number 8, Dante Pettis, 6'1", 188, has 8 return TDs for touchdown, which ties an NCAA record. He'll look to break that record this week. I also like their junior wide receiver number 6, Chico McClatcher. McClatcher is only 5'7", 179, so he's slot all the way. But he's a guy that can make plays. Speaking of undersized wide receivers, Colorado's got a couple of them to look for in this game. Number 1, Shea Fields, who's 5'11", 185. He's a senior, as is number 2, Devin Ross, who's 5'11", 180. Number 4, Bryce Bobo, is a 6'2", 210 receiver, so he's the biggest of the bunch. All of them are fringe prospects, but they can play. So we'll get a good look at them against the Washington secondary. At 9:15 on ESPN2, Hawaii at Wyoming. The matchup to watch in this game will be Hawaii's senior tight end number 7, Methuselah Unga, who I've talked highly of in the past. And we'll see how he matches up with junior safety number 28, Andrew Wingard from Wyoming, who's a very good safety prospect. You can't miss him with the flowing blonde locks. 9:30 p.m. on ESPN is UCLA at Stanford. Josh Rosen, after he won the game against Texas A&M, lost the game against Memphis last week. See how he bounces back this week. And Stanford needs this win this week after losing 2 games in a row to Southern Cal and San Diego State. For Stanford, let's look at see how their corners handle the passes of Rosen, number 13, junior Elijah Holder, and number 24, junior Quentin Meeks. That's going to do it for this week's preview on the Cheat Meal. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Deep Fried Draft. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/deepfrieddraft. YouTube, search Deep Fried Draft. Click subscribe. Find all the videos just like this and be notified of when the new ones come out. And you can download the Bumpers app in the App Store and listen to all our weekly review podcasts there, as well as find everything that you need to know about the draft and about everything that I do at deepfrieddraft.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Till next week. See you.